Imagine a tsunami, not of water but of debt, a $14 trillion wave threatening to engulf American households. This isn't a scene from a disaster movie, but a reality that's slowly unfolding. We're standing on the shore of a financial crisis, the magnitude of which is almost incomprehensible. It's a storm of debt that's been steadily brewing, its dark clouds now casting a shadow over the American dream. The numbers are staggering. Household debt in America has climbed to an all-time high, reaching a mind-boggling $14 trillion. That's a figure so colossal, it's hard to truly grasp its scale. Picture this, if you lined up 14 trillion $1 bills, they would stretch to the moon and back, not once, not twice, but nearly 3 times. That's the depth of the hole we're finding ourselves in. But what does this mean for the average American? In simple terms, it means that many are living on a financial tightrope, balancing precariously between making ends meet and falling into the abyss of insolvency. It's a reality that's becoming increasingly common as more and more households find themselves sinking further into debt. This isn't just about numbers on a balance sheet. This is about real people with real lives facing real financial insecurity. It's about parents struggling to put food on the table, students burdened with crippling loan debts, and families losing their homes. It's a crisis that's touching every corner of society, from the bustling cities to the quiet rural towns. And the consequences? They could be devastating. As this debt tsunami continues to build, it threatens to wipe out savings, shatter dreams, and leave a trail of financial ruin in its wake. It's a storm that could change the very fabric of our society, and it's one that we're ill-prepared to weather. This is not just a wave, it's a financial tsunami, and it's heading our way. To understand the beast, we must look it in the eye. Let's dissect this $14 trillion monster. The anatomy of the household debt is a mosaic of obligations, each with its own tale to tell. We start with the largest slice of the debt pie, mortgages. They account for a significant portion of the debt, with many households carrying this financial burden for decades. The dream of homeownership has its price, and it's a price that continues to rise year after year. Next, we have student loans. Education has always been the key to upward mobility, but now it's more like a golden handcuff. The cost of college has skyrocketed, outpacing wage growth and leaving many graduates in a deep financial hole before they even start their careers. Then we have credit card debt. It's the silent killer of financial health. Low minimum payments and high interest rates can turn a small balance into a mountain of debt in no time. Convenience comes at a cost, and that cost is growing every day. Finally, let's not forget about auto loans. Cars are a necessity for many, but the cost of owning one is not insignificant. With the rise of long-term loans and high interest rates, it's not uncommon for people to owe more on their car than it's worth. Each of these components has seen substantial growth over the years. Mortgages have grown with the housing market. Student loans have ballooned with tuition increases. Credit card debt has swelled with consumer spending. And auto loans have expanded with the cost of vehicles. The debt is not just a number. It's a living, breathing entity that grows and evolves. It's a monster that feeds on our dreams and aspirations, growing larger and more powerful with every dollar we borrow. The debt is diverse, complex, and growing. It's a monster of our own making. When one domino falls, the rest follow. The economic collapse will be no different. Visualize a long line of dominoes, each representing a crucial segment of our economy. Now imagine the first domino, the $14 trillion household debt, tipping over. The impact will be swift and devastating, creating a chain reaction that will touch every corner of the economy. First to be hit will be jobs. As households struggle with debt, they cut back on spending. This decreased demand forces businesses to scale back, leading to layoffs. And as unemployment rises, so does the number of people unable to pay back their debts, causing the first domino to hit the second: businesses. Businesses, especially small to medium enterprises, operate on thin margins. A decrease in demand can push them over the edge, leading to closures. The closure of businesses not only increases job losses, but also affects local economies and the real estate market. Empty storefronts don't attract customers, nor do they pay rent, pushing property values down. The third domino to fall is the housing market. With job losses and business closures, people struggle to pay their mortgages. Foreclosures increase, and as more houses go up for sale, prices drop. The housing market crash of 2008 is still fresh in our minds, a stark reminder of how fast things can go downhill. The final domino is the broader economy. As the effects ripple out, they impact everything from stock markets to international trade. The economic indicators we take for granted, GDP, inflation, and interest rates, all take a hit. The economy enters a recession, or, in the worst case, a depression. The dominoes are lined up. The question is, when will they start to fall? When the storm hits, it won't just be the economy that drowns. Personal finances will be devastated. Imagine a sudden downpour on a sunny day. No umbrellas, no raincoats, just you and the deluge. That's what an economic collapse feels like on your personal finances. Let's start with personal savings. These are the safety nets we create for ourselves, the rainy day funds. But in an economic collapse, the rain doesn't just fall, it pours. Savings accounts can quickly evaporate as we scramble to cover basic expenses. And with interest rates potentially skyrocketing, the cost of borrowing can become exorbitant, further diminishing our savings. Then there's the impact on retirement funds. Many of us have been diligently contributing to our 401(k)s and IRAs for years, dreaming of a comfortable retirement. But when the economy takes a nosedive, those dreams can quickly turn into nightmares. A plummeting stock market can decimate retirement funds overnight, leaving many with a fraction of what they had saved. Next, consider the ability to afford basic necessities. Food, housing, healthcare. These are things we all need to survive. But with job losses mounting and wages stagnating, even these essentials can become out of reach for many. It's a harsh reality. But in an economic collapse, the number of Americans living paycheck to paycheck can dramatically increase. We all like to think of our personal finances as robust and resilient, but they're more like a house of cards, each card precariously balanced on the other. A sudden gust of wind, or in this case, an economic collapse, can send the whole structure tumbling down. In the face of the storm, personal finances are like houses of cards, ready to collapse at the slightest gust of wind. So what can we do? How can we prepare? That's what we'll explore in the next scene. Stay tuned. In times of crisis, we look to our leaders for guidance. But what role does the government play in this impending disaster? The government's role in the buildup of this debt crisis is substantial, and it's a two-sided coin. On one hand, policies and regulations have been instrumental in shaping the current economic landscape. These policies have influenced borrowing trends, with the goal of stimulating economic growth and prosperity. However, they've also led to an unsustainable increase in household debt. Government regulations, or sometimes the lack thereof, have allowed financial institutions to lend to individuals who may not have the ability to repay these loans. This has resulted in a mountain of debt that threatens to avalanche on the American economy. Moreover, the government's influence extends beyond policy and regulation. It's also the primary entity responsible for responding to economic crises. When the economy takes a downturn, the government typically steps in to stimulate growth. This can come in the form of lower interest rates, increased public spending, or even bailouts for struggling industries. But what happens when the government itself is the one drowning in debt? With a national debt that exceeds $14 trillion, the government's ability to respond effectively to an economic collapse is questionable. How can a debtor be a savior? In the event of an economic collapse, the government's response will have a profound impact on the personal finances of every American. Will they choose to bail out major corporations, leaving the average citizen to fend for themselves? Or will they prioritize helping the everyday American, potentially at the expense of big business? These choices will shape the future of the economy and the financial stability of every American household. In the end, the government's role in this impending disaster is pivotal. They hold the power to mitigate the crisis or exacerbate it. As we navigate these uncertain waters, it's important to remember that the government's actions will have profound and lasting implications. Their decisions will not only affect our economy, but also the personal finances of millions of Americans. The government can either be our lifeboat or the iceberg that sinks us. In the face of disaster, preparedness is key. How can we brace ourselves for the impact? The answer lies in financial preparedness, a three-step approach that we can all take to secure our personal economies. Firstly, we need to build an emergency fund. This fund should be able to cover at least 6 months of living expenses, tucked away in a savings account that you can easily access. It's not about growing your wealth, but about having a safety net in case of job loss, health emergencies, or unexpected expenses. Think of it as your financial lifeboat, ready to keep you afloat when the waves get rough. Secondly, we need to tackle the beast that is debt. With $14 trillion of household debt looming over us, it's clear that we need to minimize our personal share. Start with high-interest debts like credit cards, and work your way down. Every dollar paid off is a dollar that won't be growing into a bigger debt. It's a hard battle, but one well worth fighting. Finally, we need to diversify our income sources. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Having multiple streams of income can insulate you from job loss or business failure. This could be as simple as taking on a part-time job, freelancing, or investing in a side business. It's all about creating a buffer that can help you weather the storm. Remember, the goal here isn't to escape the storm altogether. That's beyond our control. But what we can control is how well we're prepared to face it. By building an emergency fund, paying off debt, and diversifying our income sources, we're not just preparing for the worst. We're also building a foundation for financial stability no matter what the economic climate. So, let's take these steps today, for tomorrow's peace of mind. Because in the end, preparation might not prevent the storm, but it can certainly help us weather it. After every storm, there's a calm. What will the economic landscape look like post-collapse? In the wake of a financial tempest, it's easy to imagine a bleak and barren landscape, but history has a way of reassuring us that even in the aftermath of the most destructive storms, recovery is not just a possibility, it's an inevitability. The economic collapse we're discussing, fueled by a staggering $14 trillion household debt, is a storm of monumental proportions. It will undoubtedly leave its mark, but it's essential to remember that these scars can also serve as catalysts for change. So, what might this change look like? In the immediate aftermath of the collapse, we'd likely see an increase in governmental intervention. This could manifest in the form of financial aid packages, stimulus programs, and perhaps even sweeping reforms in financial regulations. On an individual level, we'd probably witness a shift in personal financial behavior. A crisis of this magnitude has a way of clarifying what's truly important. People may become more cautious with their spending, more mindful of their savings, and more intent on reducing their debt. Businesses, too, would have to adapt. They may need to reevaluate their models, streamline their operations, and find innovative ways to meet the needs of a changed consumer market. As for the broader economy, recovery would be gradual. It might take years, even decades, to fully bounce back, but bounce back it will. The economy is resilient. It's designed to weather storms and adapt to new conditions. And let's not forget the role of innovation and technology in all of this. These tools have the power to catalyze recovery, create new industries, and even reshape our economic landscape in ways we can't yet foresee. So, as we stare down the barrel of this impending economic collapse, let's remember, it's not the end. It's a painful and challenging chapter, yes, but it's also an opportunity. An opportunity to learn, to grow, and to build a more resilient economic future. The storm will pass, and when it does, we need to be ready to rebuild. The $14 trillion debt tsunami is a daunting prospect. But knowledge is power. As we've traversed the stormy seas of economic uncertainty, we've dissected the anatomy of this colossal debt, its domino effect, and the profound impact on personal finances. We've examined the government's role in this unfolding drama and explored how we, as individuals, can prepare for the worst. It's critical to remember that while this economic collapse might seem overwhelming, it's not insurmountable. Understanding the intricate dynamics of this impending crisis, arming ourselves with knowledge, and taking proactive steps towards preparedness can mitigate the damage. We've also looked beyond the storm, towards a future that, while uncertain, is not without hope. When we're informed, prepared, and resilient, we're better equipped to navigate any crisis that comes our way. The storm is coming, but armed with knowledge and preparation, we can face it head-on.